From Britannica.com. Marcus Garvey, born August 17, 1887, St. Anne's Bay, Jamaica, died June 10, 1940, London, England, was a charismatic black leader who organized the first important American black nationalist movement, 1919 to 26, based in New York City's Harlem. Largely self-taught, Garvey attended school in Jamaica until he was 14. After traveling in Central America and living in London from 1912 to 1914, he returned to Jamaica, where, with a group of friends, he founded the Universal Negro Improvement and Conservation Association and African Communities League, usually called the Universal Negro Improvement, UNI, on August 1, 1914. It sought, among other goals, to build in Africa a black-governed nation. Failing to attract a following in Jamaica, Garvey went to the United States in 1916 and soon established branches of the UNIA in Harlem and other cities with significant black communities in the North. His slipshod business methods, however, and his doctrine of racial purity and separatism, he even approved of the white racist Ku Klux Klan because it sought to separate the races, brought him bitter enemies among established black leaders, including labor leader A. Philip Randolph and W.E.B. Du Bois, head of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP. A. Philip Randolph, born April 15, 1889, Crescent City, Florida, U.S., died May 16, 1979, New York, New York, was a trade unionist and civil rights leader who was an influential figure in the struggle for justice and equality for African Americans. In 1925, as founding president of the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, Randolph began organizing that group of black workers and, at a time when half the affiliates of the American Federation of Labor, AFL, barred African Americans from membership, took his union into the AFL. Given his stature and his record of racial and labor radicalism, it may be news to some that A. Philip Randolph was also an immigration restrictionist. Certainly, it's not a part of his reputation. Indeed, Randolph's biographer, Jervis Anderson, ignored the forthright position Randolph took. Point 1 among modern national black leaders, Randolph was virtually alone on his immigration position. By exploring the nature and origin of Randolph's position on immigration, we might gain a better understanding of both the pro-immigration and pro-restriction impulses among 20th century national black leaders. I would like to argue that what made Randolph different was that he was a native-born labor leader in an age when labor was restrictionist. The historian Arnold Shankman has concluded that the black community had a definite position on immigration, saying blacks favored immigration restriction, for they were persuaded that the steady influx of foreigners was an obstacle to their own economic advancement. Randolph and restriction. If the perceived contradiction between their restrictionist desires and inclusionist principle led civil rights leaders to silence, not all national black leaders were silent. In August of 1924, A. Philip Randolph articulated the most thoroughgoing opposition to immigration. Instead of reducing immigration to 2% of the 1890 quota, we favor reducing it to nothing. We favor shutting out the Germans from Germany, the Italians from Italy, the Hindus from India, the Chinese from China, and even the Negroes from the West Indies. This country is suffering from immigrant indigestion. Randolph made clear that his reason was economic and social. It is time to call a halt on this grand rush for American gold, he said, which overfloods the labor market, resulting in lowering the standard of living, race riots, and general social degradation. The excessive immigration is against the interests of the masses of all races and nationalities in the country, both foreign and native. 14. Randolph's restrictionist position may have very well been influenced by his experience as a Southern migrant to New York City amid the large influx of West Indians during the period. Born in 1889 in Jacksonville, Florida, Randolph moved to New York at the moment that West Indians as well as African Americans were arriving in the city in large numbers. 15 in 1930, over 50,000 foreign blacks lived in New York. 16, as Du Bois' second reason for silence reveals, many African Americans were hostile toward West Indians. Certainly Randolph also could be harsh on West Indians. Yet his basis of criticism of West Indians lay in their political shortcomings. not their economic competition or ethnic chauvinism. For all their talk of resisting oppression, West Indians, Randolph believed, did not take the appropriate steps to organize against discrimination. Most notably, Randolph castigated West Indians for not becoming citizens of the United States. To challenge discrimination, blacks, he held, needed political power, and such power could only be garnered by citizens. It is also elementary that whether one be a citizen or not, he is affected by the legislation of the country where he happens to be residing. He called for black immigrants to follow the example of the Jews and the Irish who had become citizens to increase their clout. Garvey's Pan-Africanism, the idea that peoples of African descent have common interests and should be unified. Historically, Pan-Africanism has often taken the shape of a political or cultural movement. There are many varieties of Pan-Africanism. In its narrowest political manifestation, Pan-Africanists envision a unified African nation where all people of the African diaspora can live. Du Bois' famous statement was made with the clear knowledge that many Africans living on the African continent suffered under the yoke of European colonial rule. Garvey's influence declined rapidly when he and other UNIA members were indicted for mail fraud in 1922 in connection with the sale of stock for the Black Star Line. He served 2 years of a 5-year prison term, but in 1927 his sentence was commuted by U.S. President Calvin Coolidge, and he was deported. President Joe Biden pardoned Garvey in 2025. Garvey was never able to revive the movement abroad, and he died in 1940 in England. His body was returned to Jamaica in 1964.